Thank you very much, Mr. Vickery, for sharing that insight. Now we have a breaking news. According to British Prime Minister's spokesperson, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has no plans to hold talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin directly, despite suggestions from some European leaders that engagement with Moscow may be necessary. The spokesperson has said Starmer remains focused on supporting Ukraine in its fight against Russia and on helping Kyiv secure a just and lasting peace. Britain's priority, the spokesperson has added, is to ensure Ukraine is in the strongest possible position, both on the battlefield and in any future peace negotiations. Now we move on to our next news. A Moscow court had held a preliminary hearing in a lawsuit filed by Russia's central bank against Belgian financial group Euroclear over the fate of Russia's blocked assets in Europe. Judge Anna Petrukhina ruled that the proceedings would be held behind closed doors at the request of the central bank. The bank alleges that Euroclear acted illegally in freezing the assets and is seeking approximately $232 billion, which includes the assets and compensation for lost returns. Let's listen into what officials has shared.
Но мы просто возмущены тем, что фактически в нашем понимании в процессуальные нарушения нас просто не при процессуальных нарушениях, простите, нас просто не пустили в процесс. Сейчас вообще вот частные инвесторы, они ведут самую разную работу. Кто-то пытается обратиться с лицензиями, кто-то пишет в законодательные там органы, то есть, соответственно, в Госдуму запросы депутатам, кто-то пишет постоянные запросы в Центробанк. Реакции, по сути своей, никакой.
У меня были акции в размере порядка 1 миллиона рублей. Соответственно, сейчас я уже 4-й год хожу по инстанциям, оббиваю пороги и не могу получить свои деньги. Все, что мне предлагают, это продать на внебирже, организованной площадкой, самостоятельно, с дисконтом 90%.
Really a very important.
Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Raymond Vickery. He's an American attorney and former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Commerce, joins us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, Mr. Vickery, for staying with us. Now looking at this, what more can you tell us about this, and how significant is this, that Russia instead is asking for the money, and also on top of it they're also asking for compensation of the lost returns?
Well, thanks for allowing me to comment on this. It seems to me that this shows that President Putin has adopted a playbook really from President Trump, in that you try to use the law both ways. First of all, you have to recognize that what Putin and Russia have done in invading Ukraine and causing war there, the worst conflagration since World War II, is completely illegal and completely outside and against international law any way you look at it. At the same time, President Putin is trying to use the law as lawfare, if you will, to benefit himself and Russia. The assets which are in Belgium are frozen at this point, and the question is whether they should be seized or whether there should be a loan granted against those blocked assets. And of course, what Putin is trying to do is to cloak this in law, which of course is ironic in view of the fact that he and Russia are the biggest lawbreakers in the world at this point. So this hearing in Moscow, a court proceeding, is really just like a Stalin show trial. It really doesn't, there's no indication that there's going to be any kind of justice rendered. It's simply a measure to try to use against the West the rule of law in order to be able to solidify its position. The problem, of course, is that to wage peace like you wage war, you've got to have a strategy, you've got to have partners, and you've got to have principles. At this point, the United States, the West, are in disarray. They do not have an overall strategy. There is not a partnership, and the principles are not agreed upon. So in this situation, President Putin is able to try to divide and conquer, particularly focusing on Belgium, which really does not have much in the way of military might, and is totally dependent in many aspects on its center as a financial center. So this is the way in which it's being conducted. It is really sort of a shadow game, and what really needs to happen is for the democracies to formulate a strategy, a partnership, and adhere to the principles in the UN Charter to be able to stop this worst aggression which Putin has unleashed in his invasion of Ukraine. So this, it seems to me, as Shakespeare would say, is full of sound and fury signifying nothing, because the underlying reality is that the nations of the West are not together in regard to a unified response to the aggression of Russia in Ukraine.
Thank you for sharing that deep and excellent insight with us, Mr. Vickery. Thank you very much. Now we move on to our next news. Lithuanian authorities have accused Russia's main intelligence directorate of orchestrating an attempted arson attack in 2024 on a plant supplying radio wave scanners to Ukraine's military. However, 6 individuals from Spain, Colombia, Cuba, Russia, and Belarus have been arrested and face up to 15 years in prison. The attack was coordinated by a group with ties to Russia, which has denied involvement in sabotage activities. Similar attempts were made in Poland, Romania, and Czech Republic. Meanwhile, Lithuania has also issued international warrants for additional suspects. Let's listen in.
Veiklos židinys buvo Šiauliuose įsikūrusios uždarosios akcinės bendrovės TVC Solution infrastruktūra ir bendrovės gaminama produkcija, tai radio bangų spektro analizavimo mobilios stotis, kurios buvo skirtos Ukrainos ginkluotosiam pajėgom. Tai pačios vieno ir tos produkcijos bendra vertė, kuri buvo saugoma teritorijoje, sudarė apie 1,5 milijono, o taikiniai buvo ir kiti susiję objektai. Šioje byloje, kaip minėjau, yra 6 kaltinamieji, tai tikrai pilietybės yra vairios. Paminėsiu, reiškia, kad tai yra Ispanijos pilietis, Ispanijos ir Kolumbijos dvigubas turėtų pilietis, Kolumbijos pilietis, Kubos pilietis, Rusijos pilietis ir Baltarusijos pilietis.
Now we move on to Bulgaria. We have a breaking news coming. Bulgaria will hold a